Alright, now let's get into the standard form of a quadratic function. Your standard form is what you may also know from back in Algebra 2 as the vertex form. So here in pre-calculus, we like to make things a little bit more difficult and not as easy. So this is the same thing. Standard form is what we're going to refer to as the old vertex form. That's where you have f of x is equal to a times x minus h plus k. This is super nice because this gives you your vertex when you just have h comma k. So this is your vertex. It identifies your vertex of your parabola as h comma k, where remember, if you have your h is the opposite of whatever you see, and your k is whatever you have on the outside. So for example, if you had the equation of y equals 2 times x plus 3 squared minus 5. Well, your vertex would be at the point, you look at your x, and if it's on the inside of your parentheses, you have to use the opposite number. So this would be a negative 3. If you are outside your parentheses, you have to use the same number that is shown to you. So we would say your vertex is at negative 3, negative 5. We kind of discussed this back in chapter 1. Whenever you had something that's horizontal and it's inside your parentheses, you have to think of the opposite. All right, so if we go down here and look at the nice yellow box here, so if we have our standard form, then you have a vertical line or an axis. We like to call that the axis of symmetry. That's at x equals h. You have a vertex at h comma k, and your graph is either going to be opening up or down. If a is greater than 0, your parabola opens up. If a is less than 0, that means it's going to be opening down. So if we look at example 2, what we're going to have to do in example 2 is, maybe if we get to example 2, we're going to have to write this equation in standard form, which is the same as vertex form. Identify our vertex of the graph and describe the graph relative to our parent function, x squared. So if we start off with f of x equals x squared minus 10x plus 25, you are going to have to complete the square in order to simplify this. So the first, to put it in standard form. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 25 to both sides. Can't complete the square if you have a trinomial. You can only do it if you have a binomial, just x's. So we'd have f of x minus 25, and then that's going to be equal to x squared. Oops, I need to leave a little space here. Leave a little space. Back up. Leave a little space. This is going to be equal to x squared minus 10x, and then we're going to have a little space here because we're going to need to find some number that is going to be added right here. And then the number that we add here, we're going to have to multiply by whatever is out front. In this case, is just a 1. So here we're going to multiply. And then we're going to put that number over here. So add that number or subtract it over here. So if to find this number, this is our value we like to call c. To find out what c is, then you are going to have to take half of your b. Well, b is in front of your x term. You're going to divide by 2, and then you're going to square it. So in this case, our b is a negative 10, and we're going to divide that by 2 and square it. So negative 10 divided by 2 is a negative 5. Negative 5 squared is a 25. So our next step in our work here, we're going to have f of x minus 25, and then we're going to add c. So we're going to add 25 here. That's going to be equal to a 1. There's a 1 out front here. Sorry, I should have been a little more, I shouldn't have been so careless. You're adding a 25 here, and you multiply 25 times 1. 25 times 1 gives you a 25, which you're going to add over here. If this was a 2 or a negative 2, you'd multiply 25 times 2 or negative 2, put that number over here. Sorry for my careless errors. So x squared minus 10x plus 25 And voila, you have done the hardest part of your problem. So if we simplify this, we combine what's on the left. You have a negative 25 plus 25. Well, that's just, those cancel each other out. You just have f of x. That's going to be equal to, on the right, you need to factor this and write it as a perfect square. So this would be x minus 5 times x minus 5, or x minus 5 squared. This is your standard form equation. Now, we don't have a number out here. That's okay. We kind of do in a way, actually. So now let's identify our vertex. So your vertex, remember you have to use whatever the opposite is on the inside of your parentheses. We have a negative 5 here, so we're going to write down a plus 5. Well, what's your y value? We're looking for a number out here. Well, we have a plus 0, we just don't write it. So we're going to put 5 comma 0 for our vertex. So if we want to describe this relative to our parent function, remember your parent function is centered at the origin. Well, this is just shifted left. Sorry, this is shifted right 5 units. It's not shifted up or down. It's not reflected. It is also not stretched or shrunk. So there's your example on how to put something in standard form, how to find its vertex, and how to describe its graph relative to your parent function.